Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Fits. The topic today is what's Zoom Zen? Zoom Zen, I like that. So there's several things. What happened last night, I was, well, let me back up here a little bit. I live in, for those of you who haven't, or don't follow me, but I live in Blackstone, which is a small town in Virginia. It's a Trump and a Christian town, and so I'm probably the only Buddhist here. A Buddhist grows in Blackstone, yet I'm not really a Buddhist, but I'll explain. So anyway, I was at a friend of mine liked my writing on Facebook, so he invited me to as a speaker for his Zen Center up in Boston. A small group, and so it was on Zoom. That was their first time they had a meeting on Zoom, so it was Zoom Zen. And I know the thing about Buddhism is that it always it's kind of like yogurt. The teachings of Dharma, not Buddhism as a religion, it's not a religion, but the Dharma teaching, is like yogurt. If you're going to have yogurt, a lot of people make it, you have to have the bacteria to start it. You just can't mix some stuff together. You got to get the living bacteria. It's kind of like sourdough bread. You have to have that yeast, and then you make your yogurt, and then you add a flavor. Well, Buddhism is like that. The Dharma teaching, the teaching is like that yeast. It's a living teaching, and it takes on the flavor of whatever culture it is put in. So there's Tibetan Buddhist flavor, there's Southeast Asian Buddhism, there is Chinese Buddhism, and Japanese Buddhism, and now there's American Buddhism after World War II. And so everyone has its own flavor. And now with COVID, there's Zoom Zen, which is a new flavor. A new flavor, you see. Zen evolved out of China. Their Buddhism started in India, northern India, and the teaching spread Tibet, Southeast Asia, and it went to China about the turn of the time of Christ, about that time. And then it turned from Buddhism in China, kind of like mixed with Taoism and became Zen, and it went to Japan. And then from Japan, it came to America. So there are two forces of flavor coming into America Buddhism, which is one from Tibet, some from Southeast Asia, and some from Japan. So these three flavors are coming in and mixing and creating an American Buddhism, an American Dharma. So I kind of like live here in Blackstone, like Bodhidharma in a cave. Bodhidharma was a Zen master who came from India to China around 400 AD. Buddhism was already in China then, and was flourishing. And there was a great emperor, Wu, who had been practicing. He was a Buddhist, and he had been creating monasteries, and he had been doing all this good merit, to build up credit for the afterlife and all of that stuff, And so Bodhidharma came, this master from India. I think he was supposed to be about 100 years when he came, and he went to see the emperor, and the emperor asked him, "What merit will I get from all of my good works?" And Bodhidharma said, "Not a thing." And so the master said, the emperor said, "Well, who are you?" And Bodhidharma says, "I don't know," and walked away. Then he sat in a cave for 9 years. And these are all legends. And so he only had one student. I've forgotten his name, but he came to the outside of the cave, and he, again, legend, and he stood there waiting for the teacher to recognize him and teach him and allow him and become his disciple. And Bodhidharma just ignored him. So he cut off his arm and stood there in the snow. until finally Bodhidharma recognized him, and he says, "What do you want?" And he said, "Master, my mind has no rest. Will you please put it to rest?" And Bodhidharma said, "Well, bring me your mind and I'll put it to rest." And the monk says, "I've looked and I cannot find my mind, Master." And Bodhidharma says, "Well, then I've put it to rest." And the monk became awakened and became the first patriarch in Zen. So anyway, interesting story, legend. But let's get back to Zoom Zen. Now, as I said, I don't label I don't have any credentials. I don't have any authority. I don't have any lineage. I don't have any masters. I'm not, in a lineage, and oh, my student, who's your guru? What? So that, although I do have, back in the 70s when I was in yoga, I did have some yoga gurus. But in Buddhism, I have teachers, but not any particular lineage, so there are no credentials. I have no authority, no stamp of approval, no pat on the shoulder saying, "Okay, you can go out now," whatever. So I live in a cave. I live in a cave here in Blackstone. I have a little Buddha on my front porch as the only kind of like, it keeps away the Jehovah's Witness and the Mormons. So anyway, what's Zoom Zen? So anyway, of course, literally, Zoom Zen is when you have a meeting on Zoom. I mean, that's becoming very popular now by necessity. And I expect a lot of people will be having Zoom Thanksgiving. But Zoom Zen was a Sangha, which is a meeting of like-minded people on the way. And they were having it in Zoom, so and I was invited as a speaker, so I gave a little introduction, and they asked me some questions, and I talked about my practice and how I practice, and it was I really enjoyed it. I had a little apprehension, a tiny bit, because here I was going to speak to real Buddhist people who, Boston, that was in Boston, the elite, the Boston Buddhists, who were in a tradition and apparently knew what they were doing. And so here I am, kind of this Facebook guy, being invited to speak, who has no credentials. No, who are you? I don't know, said Bodhidharma. In the third temptation of Buddha, when he sat under the tree, just like Jesus, he was tempted by Mara, which is our mind, my mind, your mind. And the first temptation was desire, and the second temptation was fear, and Buddha was not moved. And the third temptation was most interesting. It was kind of like doubt. Mara said, "Well, all right, you're not afraid of anything, and you don't desire any, you're not seduced, you can't be seduced, you can't run. But by what authority do you sit there and say you're awakened, I mean, what scripture, what authority, what right do you, who do you think you are?" And the Buddha just pointed to the earth to say, this ground that I'm on is my authority. And of course, the legend has it, the tree he was sitting under bloomed and the flowers came down and all that. But that's the metaphorical, mythic interpretation of it. But the Dharma teaching is very, very clear. Who are you, and by what authority do you speak? What is your, is your authority the Bible, and you just quote the Bible, or some philosophy, or what you've read, and what, what is your word? What do what authority? Why did you come to the West, Bodhidharma? Why? to what do you point? Let's put, what reference do you have? Religion or philosophy or what, you know? But when you pointed to the earth, Buddha just pointed to this moment. The earth is this moment. This moment is my thought. This moment is my Zen, you know. So Zoom Zen now, expanding the metaphor a little bit, you know, Zoom is very interesting because on Google, you have a map, you can zoom in. And if you keep zooming in, imaginary, you can zoom in on a map and there you are, and then you can zoom in on you. A lot of times you see this on some YouTubes, or little digital manipulations, but you can keep zooming in on your face and then zoom in on your forehead and then zoom in on your skin and then zoom in on these molecules and cells, and then you keep zooming. You can zoom all the way in until you come to that which cannot be zoomed. If that exists, you see. In the imagination, you would come. Can you come to that which cannot be divided? Can you come to that where the zoom stops? Or you could zoom the other way and start zooming out. Oh, there's America, there's the Earth, oh, there's the galaxy, oh, there's the universe, oh, there's the cosmos. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Can you keep zooming out? Is there an end to zoom? So if you zoom either way, zoom out, zoom in, where do you end up? Is it just infinite like that, or do you end up here? In other words, zooming in or zooming out, you're searching for the one that cannot be divided. Like, can you zoom out until you get to the whole that includes everything? If you could get to the whole that includes everything, that would be the one. But if you could go the other way and get to the one thing that cannot be divided, that would be the one. They used to think, well, the atom was the one. Can't divide that, but then they split it, you know. And then they split the splits. And then they split the splits, And wah, you see. So the search for the one, you see, zoom out, zoom in, has no logical, conceptual end to it. Because you can always imagine something else. Like, well, God created the earth, created the universe. Well, what was before God? Or the Big Bang? Well, what was before the Big Bang? You see. So in other words, so in our conceptual mind, there is no end to the zoom. But in Zen, there is. So it's a circle. If you go out to zoom out, you come to where you started. There's a saying in Zen, coming and going, I'm always home. Coming and going, I'm always home. Coming and going, I'm always in Blackstone. If you're on a GPS Navigator, coming and going, you're always home. It's interesting, I use the GPS a lot as a metaphor for Zen. If you're on a flat map where your home may be there, you got to go from here to there, and there's only one way to go. But you're not home until you get there. But on the GPS, you're always at the center, and the world moves around you. You don't move in the world moves around you. It's a different paradigm. That's Zen. In Zen, you're always at the center. And if you move here, the world moves around you. So if I'm here in my foyer, this is the center of the universe. If I zoomed out, I would zoom out to Blackstone, I would zoom out to Virginia, I would zoom out to America, I would just keep on zooming, but I would always be at the center. But if I go into the living room, the whole cosmos shifts. I'll be at the center in the living room. And if I zoom out, there'll be the house, the Blackstone, the town, everything, zoom, zoom, zoom. But I'm at the center. So wherever I go in my house, I'm at the center of the cosmos. Everything zooms out, you see. And if I go in, I zoom in, I see my thinking, my feelings, my thoughts, my choices, my values, even my consciousness. I can keep zooming in, or zooming out. I'm always at home. I'm always at the center, you see. So each one of you is the center of the universe. But we think of the universe in terms of a flat map, where the universe is out there and I'm in it. And when I die, this world will still be here and I'll be gone. Will it? You are the center. You know the world. You make the world real because you know it. Each of us is the center of the world. And that's really kind of like what Zen is doing. It's inviting a shift from yourself being alienated outside of the world, wandering lost from the garden, trying to find God or home or who you are or what religion you belong, what should I do? All these questions means I'm lost. So there was a story of an Eskimo and a hunter, and they had an igloo, and they went out on a hunt, and the storm came, and everything was changed, and they couldn't see where the igloo was, and the hunter said, "Oh my God, the igloo is lost. We're lost." And the Eskimo said, he said, "We're lost." The Eskimo said, "We're not lost. The igloo is lost." He was always at the center. You say, you're not lost. You're at the center. So that's what Zoom is, metaphorically. Zoom out as far as you can go. Zoom in as far as you can go. You are still always at the center. The zoom, the world comes out of you. Zoom, either way, past, future, it all zooms out of you, you see, whichever way you want to go. Far as you can see, as far as you can go in. You're still at the center, you see. Coming and going, you never leave home. Zoom Zen. Thanks for dropping in.